You made it the exact same number of days that you did in your original season, but how do you feel about how far you made it?
I made it so much further than I think I was expecting to make it. The same, I was on 45 where, I was kind of like a cockroach, just kept going much further than I probably should. My gameplay wise, I always say that's like Survivor is a game that punishes good players. So I think a lot of times, like smart strategic players who are playing good games tend to get voted off earlier. That benefits chaotic, messy people like myself who tend to stick around. But I'm proud of myself for trying. I'm shocked that I made it as far as I did in 21 days. Even if I tap out at 3 weeks, I'm honored to have had the opportunity.
Yeah, and you said in your confessional in your exit interview in that episode that you were really proud of how you were more true to yourself in this season, how you felt like you lost agency in season 45. So could you expand on that a little more, how you feel about your performance?
Yeah, on 45, I mean, I was in part benefited by the edit, but I had such a jarring experience, got so much feedback initially that I think I was playing afraid. And the second time around, I remember just thinking to myself, like, I want to be myself. I want to have fun. I want to do the best that I can, but ultimately just come out of it saying, like, yeah, like what you saw was probably true, authentic Emily. And for better or worse, maybe I lean towards worse given how many secrets I spilled. I think what you saw on season 50 was really a true, authentic Emily. And the way I ultimately got voted off, I'm happy that I tried. I went out swinging. I didn't go out passively. It was just one of my biggest regrets from 45.
I gotta say, you telling everybody's secrets was one of my favorite parts of this whole season. It
Oh,
was so entertaining and funny. And I want to know, it was that like just pure personality for you, or was that strategic?
I really wish that I could sit here and tell you that this was strategic. I had some big mastermind planned where it was going to help me get to the end and get all the votes. No, but it was just complete word vomit, word salad. I think I'm a verbal processor, and so I speak before I have the opportunity to think. I actually think that's the reason why I got cast on Survivor in the first place. Somebody saw that and was like, she can't help herself, can she? And so what you saw was probably, unfortunately, just an authentic approach that I have to communication. I can learn a lot, I think, from this. I'm trying to do better about thinking before I speak. And my poor friends, they're never going to tell me anything in their lives ever again at the fear that I will share it with the entire world, of course. But it's honestly good perspective. And I did not know that I had such a serious verbal affliction until I was watching the season back.
I don't think you should like criticize it too much though, because one, it's really entertaining, funny TV. And also like it didn't kill your game. In fact, it kind of kept you in control of some things, maybe perhaps inadvertently, but I think there was some power to it.
Yeah, inadvertently is probably the right word. It's on one hand, it's like I want to give myself credit because I was spilling so many secrets. I think I came across as like very genuine and authentic, and people not realizing I was probably also spilling their secrets, but people thought they could work with that because I was just being so open, transparent, and honest. And so you could argue that helped me get further in the game, but it came at the expense of my allies, and that is pretty devastating. Especially you see it from my end game here. Like, what was my path to final three where I end up with votes? Probably non-existent. In part because I didn't have like my allies and people who were like really trusted me. And it's one thing when your mistakes hurt your own game. And I really wish that my mistakes hurt my own game. But unfortunately for 50, my mistakes hurt the people around me, right? It hurt Christian, it hurt Dee, it hurt Devins, it hurt Sariv, and like people that I was playing closely with that I wanted to continue to work with because I could not keep stuff to myself, ended up, yeah, hurting their games. And that's devastating for them and me.
That's a fair enough perspective, but I hope you weren't too hard on yourself about it because it's again, it
I
was
try to
very,
laugh at it, but
yeah.
it's like I cycle between like yelling at the TV screen and crying and being like, Emily, please, for once in your life, shut up. And then trying to remind myself, like, it's a TV show, it's a game. Like, you went out there to have fun, you had fun, other people are laughing at it. Like, so it's one of those situations where I'm forcing myself to laugh because if I don't, then I will cry.
I get it. I get it. And to talk about tribal council, how aware of you, how aware of Cerie's extra vote were you? And did you anticipate her using it in this episode?
I was completely unaware of Cerie's extra vote. I think if I had known that she had an extra vote, the calculus around this silly Hail Mary plan I put together would have dramatically changed, of course. But it's kind of fun in hindsight not knowing about the extra vote because there's this moment at Tribal Council where the votes were coming in. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this stupid plan that we worked, like it actually worked. Because you could see I looked over at Devins, I smiled. I was like, oh my gosh, they actually put the votes on you. Like this actually worked. And then of course the extra vote meant it did not actually work, but it was kind of fun for a moment there, actually thinking that maybe I'd saved myself when I fully expected to go home coming into that tribal council.
So when did you figure out what happened? You obviously must have realized in the moment someone had an extra vote. When did you figure out who it was?
Not until the game ended. And then as people were, coming out and had the opportunity to like discuss and hear what they knew, I did not know at that time where the extra vote came from. You're going back and you're like, who went on journeys? Like, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't even factor in the idea that's like Tiffany, Jonathan, or Suri could have some sort of advantage because none of them had like gone on these journeys. You don't just find extra votes in the woods, right? But obviously, in hindsight, watching it back, you realize, oh, okay, Ozzy had given Suri the extra vote from the journey that he went on. So one of the benefits, I guess, of being voted out in a dual tribal council here is you have the opportunity to discuss all that with the person you're going to vote back with.
Yeah. And what was the experience like immediately going into the jury and watching the second tribal council?
It was like weirdly jarring. I forgot that was happening. Like, I think, I started to walk maybe towards the way and then Jeff was like, no, that way. You have to go sit on the bench. And then you feel bad also because you really smell. And you're sitting next to all these people that just got all glammed up to come here and sit on the jury. And then it's jarring because you're also it's probably only a few minutes in between when I sit down on the bench and the next group of people come in and it's like I was just there, I was just playing the game and now I'm over here on the other line and everybody's looking at you being like, oh, Emily got voted off, not that they were surprised necessarily, but it was a weird experience for sure, but kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a unique one for sure. Not many people have that experience in Survivor. What was your reaction? Of course, the jury can't talk during tribal council. What were you thinking about when you saw the plot against Ozzy playing out?
I was really shocked. And maybe if I had spent more time thinking about it, I could have predicted something like this happens because you never really want to go for the easy vote, especially this late in the game. And I thought the easy vote at that point was Aubrey. I thought Aubrey was just a dead woman walking, so to speak. So when Ozzy was voted off, I was shocked. I was, but the split tribal council, there was other people who were focused on what was happening on both sides, Tiffany and Suri had a bit more of, and Jonathan obviously had a bit more leeway because they didn't feel like targets to think, okay, I'm probably going to be here tomorrow. What's going to happen on that camp that would help or hurt my game? For me, I just knew this was do or die. I was very likely going home. I could deal with whatever happens at the next camp. If I'm still here tomorrow, great, I'll deal with that then. So I didn't even spend time thinking about the fact that Ozzy could have been voted off. And so I was maybe the second most person shocked next to Ozzy.
And what was the feeling like among the group on set as Ozzy said his goodbye?
Oh, it was heart-wrenching. It was heart-wrenching. You saw it. It reminded me a little bit of how Kelly went out in season 45, where I don't think people realized how jarring it would be. And he, it was a slow exit. When you're going off, like, look, I knew I was going home. I gave my hugs, grabbed my torch, sit down. Okay, bye, Jeff, but when you're processing, like you could tell Ozzy in that moment is just trying to process what just happened. People always move slowly. They're looking, they're trying to understand who voted for what, like what happened? What did I miss? You're reaching for the torch. And I had never had appreciation for just how hard that experience is in Survivor until Christian's vote off, because that was the only time that I went to tribal council and I was really gagged, for lack of a better word, about the outcome. And I moved that way when Christian was voted off and I was like, crap, I have to go back to camp, get up, get my torch, get my bag, walk. Like, what is happening? What did I miss? Like, it is, I'm sorry, I'm going on too long, but it's a weird, it's a crazy experience.
And no, I imagine it really is. And what were you feeling when your exit was a little quicker, as you said, you got up and went. What were you feeling though? And what were you thinking as you walked to get your torch snuffed and then over to the jury?
Yeah, I knew that this was likely going to happen. So I wasn't that surprised personally. I remember thinking to myself, you always want to be if you have the opportunity to reflect, you want to exit graciously. I remember thinking to myself, like, it's a game. Everybody is playing their own game. So, I had time to think about it. We had to revote. Of course, I knew I was going home on the revote. I didn't think anybody was going to be flipping. So twice now in season 45 and season 50, I was granted what I think is a great luxury in the game, which is having an awareness that you're going home before you're going home, and at least having a second to deal with that emotionally before you're standing and staring at Jeff.
Yeah. And I wonder what, if anything, was explained about the rules around extra votes in this season. Like, was that explained by production to you all? Because I know it's been part of the game for several seasons now that like an extra vote can be used twice, right, in a revote scenario. But was that clear to you all?
Not to me. I could have asked about it, of course, but I didn't know an extra vote was even in play. Right. So I didn't think to ask about it. I think if I had, I would have gotten all the details. I don't think it ultimately, whether or not you can use the extra vote on a revote, I don't think that actually changes the outcome at all. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if I'd known Suri had an extra vote, I would have done a different plan, the plan would have never worked with an extra vote. But I was completely unaware it existed, so I didn't know about any of the extra rules around it.
Was there anything that happened in this episode or previous ones that you really wish fans could have seen?
Oh man, I think fans saw way more of me than they maybe expected to, than they wanted to, than I wanted to. That's for sure. So unfortunately, for better or worse, there's so much of my game that was shown on TV. So it's hard for me to say like, oh, you really didn't see this. I'd say the big thing was maybe just how close I felt personally in the Seal of Four alliance between myself, Rick, Christian, and Cirie. I really thought we were all working together, which is why I felt comfortable with the Ozzy vote, because I thought it was Cirie's idea, because I thought that we were a tight alliance, and maybe that wasn't shown as much, but you understand why it wasn't now in hindsight, because Cirie was kind of aligned with everybody. They try to show that, then suddenly you're showing, every relationship that Cirie has on the island.
Yeah, she definitely has like a very strong social game, to say the least. And I know that like other players were aware that Cirie and Ozzy were aligned. How aware of it were you?
Not as aware as I think I probably should have been. I knew they had worked together in the past. I knew they were in previous seasons. I did not know the depths of their alliance. I don't know if that happened pregame or during the game. It doesn't matter. But I did not realize exactly how close they were when it was happening. I knew they were working together initially, but a lot of people come into the show planning to work together, and then stuff happens. You have to still play the game for yourself. You have to win the game for yourself. So I didn't realize that. Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder too, there's been a lot of new twists introduced in this season. What's one that you would love to see in the show again? And what's one that you would do away with?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I think my favorite twist, and it probably just impacted by the outcome, was obviously what happened with Mr. Beast. And it's not necessarily like the coin flip in the immunity or anything like that. It was the fact that production came out and said, hey, something is going to happen at Tribal Council. You don't know what, but something different is going to happen at Tribal Council. And then you have to go back and all afternoon try to figure out who to vote off while still having this thing hung over your head saying something's going to happen at Tribal Council. That's what made that Tribal Council so dynamic, was nobody was able to plan. Nobody was able to prepare. And that, from a player perspective, especially as somebody who was on the bottom, that was so much fun. So I kind of like that twist. I think it's silly, of course, but like I like that twist. The thing that I'd never really been a big fan of, and I told Christian this before he went on it, was like, I never really liked journeys. That's my least favorite. I don't know if you can call that a twist. It's just like, you're damned if you don't with the journey. Like, go on it. Even if you don't get anything, you get accused of getting something. If you do get something, you have to be honest about it, or someone's going to assume you got something, like, and then, yeah, just, there's a more likely scenario you probably end up losing your vote or have to vote for yourself in Christian's case. There's very few positive outcomes from journeys, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. And I wonder, would you like to come back for another season? Because I love watching you in Survivor. And I know in all of our interviews that we've done before, you've been like, it's very stressful to play this game and to watch yourself on TV. But I think you're really fun to watch and good at the game. So would you come back?
Yeah, watching yourself on TV, I feel like I can't understate this. Like, it's so cringe. I hate it. I know I said this after 45 and then I came back for 50, but I really don't think I would come back again. A, I think there's so many people who deserve to play again who haven't had the opportunity. But B, also, I want to spare everybody. I'm happy you had fun. For me, it was miserable watching myself just completely word vomit everything to everyone. So I don't think necessarily I want to subject Survivor players to watching that, or Survivor fans and players to experiencing that again. But I do think there's like a magic in the first time you play. It's a novel experience. Like, that is a true, authentic Survivor experience. And I learned something coming back from season 50, which is that you cannot replicate that. That is not the pure, unique experience that is playing Survivor for the first time. It doesn't mean you can't have fun. I had so much fun playing 50, but it's not 45 again. It's not new. It's not novel. And anyway, no.
Well, that's fair. I understand that for sure. It's like there's a magic, a special quality to your first time playing. And then I just want to comment too. I saw Devin say that you guys didn't follow each other on Instagram because you wanted to see if fans would notice. Why did you do that? That's just fun.
Yeah, I don't really use social media. So my sister is actually the person who's like running my Instagram. I'd be running it. I don't post anything. Yeah. So I didn't realize who I was or wasn't following until I got a text message from like Christian and Devin being like, hey, Emily, you're like, did you know that you're not following us on Instagram? You're following like everybody else on the cast except for us. And then when they realized that, I was like, oh, but it's a kind of funny little joke, like make people think that there was some crazy fallout. I don't know. I don't know if that actually ever caught on. But it was not intentional initially. And I actually did just this morning. I saw Rick tagged me in a post on Instagram. I followed him. So I am officially now following Rick.
Officially mutuals on Instagram. Great.
Yes. Although again, it's the social media. So,
I get
to stay
it.
away from it all. Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on how far you made it in 50. I know it's not the ending you hoped for, obviously, but I really want to start with that tearful moment that you had with Devins earlier in the episode. What did that mean to you to have that like moment of connection with him?
Oh, it's so powerful. Yeah, just being able to open up and be vulnerable in front of millions of people and share a pain that that many people go through, whether it's the problems with their family or their sons and daughters. I think it's important and it's powerful, and I wouldn't change that for the world. I think that the only thing that sucks is that it's TV and there's much more to the story that didn't get told. And some of the major players in my life, the man who raised me, my dad, he didn't get the kind of I didn't get a chance to talk about how much he means to me because I was talking about my lack of relationship with my biological father, not the man who raised me. So that's the thing that it is tough is when you share these stories. There's much more usually to the story than gets told. But the moment with Devins was it was really I'll carry that with me for my entire life. I had a moment like that with Jonathan as well, but that didn't make it to the show. There's just the way that editing goes, and there's only so much time. But Jonathan and we also had a very, very powerful moment, hugging and crying it out. And that was part of the reason why I trusted him and didn't when he told me that he was going to vote the way I trusted him because of that moment. So, Devins is such a fun player to play with, and luckily he didn't have a hand in my demise. So maybe I'd feel different about him if he had, but probably not. I mean, I was the one to blame for my exiting the game. I had the power and I didn't use it.
When did that moment of connection with Jonathan happen? Was it this episode or an earlier one?
No, it was this episode. It might have been the day before with Devins, but we were just talking about stuff around the campfire, and that our relationship with our dads came up, and we both went through it. So it was really fresh, and it was a chance for me to connect to Jonathan in a way that I hadn't yet in the game. And so when we had a chance to vote, or we got the tribe split up, I just felt way too comfortable with those guys, Rizzo, Joe, and Jonathan, and I really, really thought that they could see how dangerous of a player Aubrey is, and that I'm a little more of a known quantity. Like I'm kind of like they know what they're getting with me. With Aubrey, she's so good. Um, she's so conniving in the right ways and so smart that I just thought that it was such an obvious vote, And in hindsight, my heart and soul knew that I needed to play that idol, but my brain was like doing too many calculations and it got in the way. And I made a decision based off of like, you know, the things that I thought were happening when they weren't actually.
In those seconds where you had to decide whether you're going to play your idol or not, what were you thinking and what was the deciding factor?
Um, well, the moment we left the beach and we're heading to tribal, my gut was telling me play the idol. Then in that ensuing hours before we actually start filming and then through tribal, my mind started saying, all right, well, if you just hold the idol one more time, then you're going to have a chance to, I was doing calculations for the next part of the game. And that if I played it the next one, then I was going to be secured, in top four. And so I just got way too ahead of myself when my body and my soul were saying, play the idol. But my mind said, no, just risk it one more day. You got this.
Yeah, and the dream that you had even told you to play it. So what was Was that running through your mind all day long? Like, what made you go against the dream? I guess, like, was there something you heard in tribal council that made you feel like you could be safe?
Yeah, I think that again, I think that when you make decisions in Survivor, if you're only using one part of your one part of your senses, whether that's your mind or just your gut, um, I think you can get into trouble. So I just got into trouble because I trusted way too much in this sort of calculus that I was doing in my head when it should have just been that should have just been a gut decision.
At the camp earlier in the day, were there more talks about voting Aubrey out than we saw in the episode? And what were those talks like, if so?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't see it too much, but Aubrey had been on the chopping block time and time and time again. So I just thought that these guys that, and it wasn't even necessarily coming from me, but from Jonathan and from Joe and from Rizzo that, oh, we got to get Aubrey out. We got to get Aubrey out. She is playing in the exact middle. She's sneaky. She can go from one thing to another to another. So it just seemed like such an obvious choice to me. Little did I know that, looking at me, I'm also a very obvious choice. So yeah, I really blew it by not playing that idol and telling Aubrey my plans. If I didn't tell Aubrey my plans, there's a chance that it wouldn't have been me. But because I told her my plans and didn't play the idol, huge mistake, huge mistake.
Yeah, and why? I'm sure everyone's asking you this today, but why did you tell her? What was the thought
Well,
behind that?
just strictly for that jury management. And obviously I know that she's going to go and tell other people, but sooner or later, everyone's going to find out and who you're working with and how you're working with them. So, I just thought I was going to get ahead of it because we were going to go back, if I had survived, we were going to go back to camp, be together, and everyone would have found out that I had given Suri an extra vote. Everyone was going to know about Suri and Rizzo and I's alliance anyways. It was just a chance for me to get ahead of that. But again, without the follow through, it looks like it is the biggest blunder in the season so far, in my opinion.
It sounds like you maybe assumed that Suri was going to play her extra vote in this tribal council. Is that true?
Oh, I knew Suri was going to play her extra vote. There was no way she was going to be able to survive because I knew that they were going to be coming for her and that she was going to play her extra vote, and that everyone would find out about our alliance anyway. So it was just a chance for me to get ahead of it, and secure potential jury vote by being honest to Aubrey in that moment. I thought that I was giving myself this opportunity to speak to her, um, and get her vote for the 2 mil.
Yeah. And how did it feel watching the episode last night and seeing Rizzo do the calculus for his own decision about whether it was good for his game to join the blind side against you or not?
I mean, it was hard because I'd had reservations about Rizzo for most of the game, but because Suri vouched for him, it's like, all right, I guess Suri's seeing something I don't see, but I don't trust this guy. And sure enough, again, sometimes you got to listen to your own intuition, but I'm still learning how to do that. I do think though that regardless of who Rizzo is going to the end with, that's still in the game right now, he's not winning against anybody. That was my general thought. I don't think anyone else thinks any different except for Rizzo, the self-proclaimed God. So, it reminds me a lot of myself when I was that age that, you think you're hot, but in all honesty, he is a very one-dimensional player. And I think that, there's going to have to be a lot of self-reflection when you go back and you say, well, yeah, I played Survivor, but I just sat around camp and talked. And really all it is him going and having these like, moments of cutting testimonials and or it's like tribal council and him, going on his interviews. That's the extent of Rizzo's game. So I don't know. I think Rizzo Rizzo was just a number for Suri and I, but came back to bite me for sure.
Where do you and Rizzo stand now?
Oh, we're good. We're fine. Like I said, I don't blame him for his move. I think it was short-sighted. I think that he's now exploded and he's exploded his closest alliance. He's now vulnerable to distrust. He's now vulnerable to other, and look, you can jump ship at the end of the game and go with a different alliance, but is it worth it? Do you win the game that way? Do you end up just being a I don't know. I don't want to speak too much about Rizzo's game, but I do think that it's short-sighted. And I think that when you make an alliance with somebody like Suri and then you break it, there's going to be repercussions.
Yeah, and had you made it to the end, how would you have differentiated your game from Cerise if it was you two together?
That's a great question. And in all honesty, I was totally ready and willing to lose Survivor 50 to the legendary Suri Fields. Hands down, I would have loved to have that opportunity. And I just would have, I would have had a lot of fun. It would have been great to plead my case against one of the best players to ever play the game. And I think that it's sorry, it's not a very clear. I'm not running away with that game. I don't think she's running away with that game. Hell, people might even throw some votes to Rizzo. I could see how Emily or, a Christian or even Coach might say, Rizzo played a great game by aligning, So I think the three of us sitting at the end together would have been absolute beauty, and it would have been a very difficult decision for the whole jury. I don't think I'm running away with that game. I really don't.
Yeah, and then to wrap up, you said in the episode as you were leaving tribal council that it was hard to put words to the feelings that you were going through in that moment. So in hindsight, has time helped you put words to those feelings? And do you really think this is the last time you're ever going to play Survivor?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, still to this day, it's hard to put words to a moment in time where you see yourself sort of in an out of body experience making the wrong decision. I mean, I've been there with lots of different decisions, but never on this magnitude at this level of life changing moments. So knowing that I'm the only one to blame for it, knowing that I had all the signs, all the intuition, all the feelings were there. I knew I had to play the idol, but then my mind played a trick on me, and it convinced me that I got to risk it one more day. And I got greedy. As far as playing Survivor again, I mean, I can't imagine a world where they ask Ozzy to go back and play a sixth time, unless it's the last Survivor that Jeff does, and it's season 60, 70. I don't know. Australian Survivor, though, hey, I would love to go play the real. Now, Australian Survivor is like the real Survivor because it's 50 some days and it's brutal. And that's the kind of game that I'd want to play in the future. So, hey, Australian Survivor, if you're listening, call me.
Never say never, right? So,
Never say never.